So, guys, we have my gorge friend Jenna Zoë here today. Jenna Zoë. I never call you Jenna Zoë, but I went with it.
I never call you Bryony Deery.
Technically, I'm Bryony Bass now.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's such a Meghan Markle moment, you know, in the show where she's like, "It's really funny. You still call me Meghan Markle."
I'm Megan Sussex now or something. She says,
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
BB is so like
I
amazing.
haven't. I don't know when. Do I change it on Instagram? Do I
I was
not?
thinking about that yesterday. Are you gonna keep your maiden name for your work, or are you gonna...
I don't know. I haven't really thought about it, and also how annoying like paperwork and stuff.
But on your journal, the BB was like so
I know.
beautiful. Yeah.
But how crazy that is what it is.
It's heaven.
It works.
Yeah.
So yes, I have Jenna with me today, and we are just having a casual girls chit chat. We're gonna go through so many topics we always have. We actually just had dinner last night, which I feel like we had to cut, even though it wasn't a short dinner, but it still felt like we cut it. And now we're back, round 2, and it feels good.
Oh, I know. I laughed
yeah.
so much at dinner. My abs are hurting.
I know. Sophia is so funny when she was doing all the impressions. It was like one of those nights that just gives you life.
Yeah.
And you know, like people always say, notice how you feel when you leave those people, like, or certain people. Notice what energy you feel when you've left. And whenever I leave you, I feel really good. And I always use the word calm. I always say, you're like, you love the word calm, but I do feel calm around you. So thank you for that. We were really laughing earlier saying, Jenna was like, what questions are you going to ask me? As if I was interviewing someone I didn't know, saying, tell me your founder journey, but we're not going to go down that route. We are going to start the convo with comparison. Because I was just telling you that on my Q&As on Instagram, like one of the questions I without fail get every single time is how to not fall into the trap of comparing others. And I feel like you will have some wisdom and advice for that.
It's an interesting one because I feel like there's so many different layers to it, because obviously the easy answer is to say, like, be disciplined about not going on there and realize that it's the highlight reel and like that kind of stuff we've heard before. But I also think that having a stronger internal buffer really helps as well, where I think something that really has helped me and also the work that I do with other people is like when you fall so in love with your own story, when you're so in your lane and you're in love with your life, the sort of temptation to think that something else outside of you is like better or where it's at kind of falls away, because that doesn't have like hooks in you anymore, because there's no insecurity that it has in you to hook into.
Yeah.
But I also feel like sometimes the comparison can help you get in your lane, because if you're seeing someone that there's some kind of energy that you're wanting, you can kind of sit with it, even if it makes you uncomfortable, and say, hold on, what is it exactly about that picture or that video or that person that I don't necessarily want to copy and paste their whole, exact life, like all the optics and everything. But is it their joy? Is it the way that they're super strategic? Is it the way that they're so in love with their husband? Like figuring out what that is, even though it's uncomfortable to feel the comparison. Because sometimes negative feelings, I feel like we've kind of made them so moot and not use them for the sort of like alchemy that they can provide us. Like sometimes fear of not doing a good job can make you make sure that you do a good job.
Yeah,
like
true.
The insecurity that someone makes you feel can be like, oh, that's
Your
my
driving
soul,
force.
like, yeah, pulling me up on like you could do better, because that's already making you uncomfortable.
But then I guess that's reframing comparison into inspiration.
Yeah.
So comparison comes with like quite a lot of negative connotation, whereas you can be inspired by someone. You can have certain you can idolize people even, or like look for them as mentors. And you don't even have to know that person to have them as a mentor, but you're inspired by certain elements. I like that, like almost picking and choosing, because the reality is, like, one tip for comparison is I guarantee you you would not want to take on 100% of that person's life. So if you think, oh, like, why don't I have this or they have that? Like, it comes with a lot of other stuff that you may not choose.
It's so true.
So it's quite interesting that you say about the picking and choosing thing. I think that's really good. One other thing you said that I just want to go into is you said, like, to fall in love with your life. I'm just hearing some people say, well, I don't love my life. How can I fall in love with my life? So how does someone do that? How does someone become that person?
Well, I think there's a massive misunderstanding now that you kind of have to know what your real self is, what your passion is, what your gifts are, what you're here to do before you even start the journey. But that's kind of a little bit, it's almost like spiritual entitlement now, where we want someone to give us everything and then we can do it. But actually life is sort of the other way around, where you have to be brave enough to try, and then it kind of reveals itself to you. So in a way, we stop ourselves from even getting there because we're like getting lost in the information. We're like, what is my thing? Who am I? Like, and we can't get those answers by sitting on our couch. Like, it's being in the game of life that it gets revealed to us. So I think if we don't know, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong or that you're, more clueless than other people. It's like you have to kind of take chances and put energy into things where there's like a little bit of heat for you. And then once you're giving something heat, then whatever you want to call it, quantum physics, the cosmic forces, the universe, God, the light, whatever you believe in, you sort of activate those unseen forces to kind of get to work on your behalf, right? So you do 10% and then life kind of rearranges the 90% of the other pieces, but it's waiting for your cue to do the 10%. So you have to be like, okay, this is going to start small, and I want to be at the 100% already, but I'm going to start at the small thing, because it's when you say to the universe, like, I'm doing the small thing, I'm taking a chance, I'm doing my work, like, I'm starting my process, that it goes, okay, so now I can start
Like, show me if this is my thing, or
Yeah.
show me my next step almost.
Yeah, and that's when it sort of like pivots you, or it shows you, new things once you're in that. So we always see other people's outcomes and we think that our start has to look like the outcome. But actually everyone has started on the, like, taking a chance on the tiny thing that seems unglamorous or random or weird or,
Yeah.
not together. And that's where the sort of reason why this is important is because of what it turns us into as human beings as we go along the journey. So we do all this because we need to become brave people. We need to become magnificent versions of ourselves. We need to become strong and capable and all those qualities.
Yeah.
So whatever shiny carrots or dreams we're like drawn to is not necessarily because of the shiny carrot. Because so many times you achieve something and you're like, oh yeah, okay, got it, done, on to
Now
the
what?
next
Yeah.
thing. It's actually the process that makes us so happy, because of the people that we become in the process.
It's often the process of it, and not to use this word, but the, like, journey of it is what other
I
word do
know.
you use in that situation? How annoying. But it's those moments that are probably more fulfilling than the outcome quite often. And like
Yeah.
we were actually saying last night with your sister, that she's currently doing a job which is really, like, challenging in an amazing way, in the sense where she's seeing it as like this schooling thing. And I think that is a really important thing to know. Like, there's not very often times which are super easy and breezy, and you look back and you're like, wow, that taught me so much. Like, when did an easy period of your life actually teach you anything? So as long as you're kind of like testing and trialing new things, and as you say, in like a more spiritual sense, putting it out there in an active way and a conscious way to the universe, then getting that kind of guidance in return.
Yeah. We live in a world where, imagine that everything that is yours, and you say this, what's for you can't go by you. Imagine all the blessings you were ever supposed to get are in this, like, sort of bank. But because we live in a world where the universe is honoring our free will, it's not going to give it to us unless we show up as that person who's, like, willing to go get it and willing to do the transformation to get those things and be, for want of a better word, a match for those things, right?
Yeah.
So you can't hold 5 kids if you haven't learned to hold having one, if you haven't learned to pave the way with other skills that have made you more strong, more capable, more giving, more magnificent, and so on and so forth. So it's that we have to kind of signal out to the world so that the rest of the world can kind of respond, because we're showing up in that as that kind of person, right? So that's when you, even if you don't believe in anything spiritual, like that's when people respond better to people who come across as more capable, more warm, more loving, and so on and so forth. Like you're just wanting to give those people more opportunities. You want to work with them. You want to be around them. It's, that's a really simple way of saying it.
It gives you almost that like security and safety. Like you feel like they're more solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust people like that.
Yeah. And how, because we've had quite a few questions come in, but another topic was misalignment, feeling out of alignment, and how to get into alignment. And this is again why I just love like our conversations. Like there's so much fluffiness out there now. And there's so much, like I always say this phrase, wishy-washy. And like, it's this whole, okay, get into alignment, do these things, do all these steps. You're going to feel good if you do. Like some people are just like, honestly, can you please just stop the wishy-washy and give me actual tips and solid advice that cuts through the crap? And you're so good at that. And I think a lot of people just don't feel in this alignment flowy state. So how do you even go about getting to that? Like what is literally step one?
Well, I think these overused phrases, they lose meaning because so many people use them in a different kind of understanding of what that word is. So whenever you catch yourself using a phrase that is kind of thrown around, it really helps to deduce it down into kind of really basic English. Like if you say, I feel misaligned, are you saying, I feel miserable all the time? Like say it in like the most basic, mundane, icky kind of way. I feel confused. I feel not jealous in a job that I want. Exactly. Because misalignment is such an umbrella term that it's really hard to get into the weeds of how to deal with that if we're using platitudes. So when people say these sort of stock phrases, I think we confuse ourselves. And I was the number one culprit of that. In my 20s, I was consuming all that sort of spiritual information that feels really good. And that language really helps when you're trying to like lift yourself, right? When you're thinking about ease and flow, you're thinking about like tapping into the energy of that. And that feels good sometimes. And you can kind of connect to that. And that's beautiful. But when you say, I feel misaligned, or how to get into the flow, where are you not in flow? What about your current life do you feel? Like, can you specifically nail down why do you feel like you're not in flow? What would being in flow look like? And that's really where we have to learn to stop consuming more information, thinking that it's the answer to our problems, and have really honest conversations with self. And the reason why that's hard is because we have to be the ones holding our own hands through that. It's not you're going to go to your favorite guru and listen to 20 more of their courses. It's like me on the bathroom floor with myself. No one's going to make me do it. No one's going to be there to like, put a timer on and say, right, you sit in the naughty corner until you figure this out type of thing.
Yeah.
There's no process except for you with you. And that I think in the world today is the hardest thing to do because there's so many easy temptations to actually turn your eyes on the outside to anything but that stuff, which is the hard transformational stuff.
Yeah.
And I also think the reason why that's hard to do is because we haven't been taught to do it in a kind, loving way to ourselves and yet being straight with ourselves. Like that combination is quite difficult. So you're either being straight and tough, or you're being there, it's okay, you're great, you don't need to change type of thing.
Yeah.
There's like a middle ground that...
And it's kind of getting out of the victim phase as well. Like, poor me. The whole time you're in that phase, you're not actually really looking within and thinking, okay, what is it I'm actually searching for firstly? What is it I'm feeling? I mean, saying the phrase misalignment is almost misalignment in itself, isn't it? Because it's like, okay, well, firstly, just get clear on what misalignment is for you. Is that what you're kind of saying? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that, like, I think as well, it's about your core value as a person, and that differs. So that's why you can't take blanket advice from people, or it's difficult to listen to, and it does feel wishy-washy because you're not connecting to it, because you're like, well, I don't feel that. I don't feel that way. I can't relate to that. So then it does feel a bit wishy-washy.
Yeah.
But what is your actual core value? And I like, one thing for me, you kindly put me on to Heath. And one thing he said to me was, your core value is freedom. And it's such a simple thing. And that might not be everyone's core value. It kind of sounds a bit obvious, like we all want to feel free. But really taking like the sense of freedom very seriously, and like it's a need in every area of your life, and always going back to that, even in a business sense. Like, for example, if I have a completely full day like planned for me, I kind of feel more calm in the sense that I know I can change things, or I know I can move within that. Do you know what I mean? That is the core value coming through in a way that is not just like, oh, I need to be free from my husband or my partner, or you know, or it's like very specific in key areas. So I feel like the alignment discussion is also a discussion of, like you say, connecting to self, but also what matters to you.
And I also think that there's this sort of binary understanding about the world that really kind of sells us short on things, because, like you said, freedom on you, there's different conditions that you have to set up that give you that feeling that might be completely different on someone else. Like, someone else's freedom could be not having a scheduled day, you know, or someone else's freedom could be being at home all the time, whereas maybe yours is traveling more, or whatever it is. And it's funny, when something is your number one thing, you think everyone else wants it. When something is your number one gift, you think everyone's good at it. Well, it's not the case, you know, like mine is love and connection, right? So as much as obviously everyone wants freedom, but for me, that's like the core feeling that I chase, is like connection to other people, which everyone obviously needs connection. So it's not a one and done thing. But with the binary thing, it's also important to know that it's not that there's all these people, and our fear can kind of tell us that all these people that I see who seem like they have it all together, they're just aligned and I'm not aligned. Whereas actually life is like this constant level of like new levels of refining your alignment. So I'm out of alignment in some ways, you're out of alignment in some ways, but it's just like you just keep on getting more and more aligned as you're in the game of life, and as you're prioritizing your own story rather than investing in wherever your feet
It's also
aren't.
just learning and being aware, basically.
Yeah.
Like every day, if you're taking something from that day, or like a small thing, like we were saying, you know, a small reaction to a text message or something like that, that is a learning for you.
Yeah.
And that is something that might help you feel this quote unquote phrase of aligned.
Yeah.
So
and everything in your
sometimes
life.
it's the small things as well.
Exactly. That's the thing, is that everything that we think is small, because we think that we have to prioritize the big in order to get somewhere big. It's not. It's like you're missing the assignment if you think that the mundane things aren't the very things that require your attention to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. So I'm going to take it to the Q&A. Let's go for it. So, okay, on the topic of alignment, breaking the loop. How misalignment becomes habitual, recognizing patterns that pull you out of alignment. For example, people pleasing.
Well, I always say that awareness is 90% of the work. Because once you've realized something, you then can't unsee it. And then it really is only a matter of time before it makes you uncomfortable enough where you're like, okay, I've got to stop this now. It almost becomes like, there's a point in which it becomes the choiceless choice, where you're like, ugh, I'm so icked out by this that I want to try something else. Yeah. So if you can be aware of it, you've already sort of started that process of unbecoming it. And you know, my mantra that I always come back to is like, let there be nothing about me that I can't say to me about me and not be okay with. Because if you can have that internal conversation and say anything like, I was being people pleasing, I was being controlling, I was being manipulative, I was smalling myself, whatever it is, and be like, I totally get probably the very innocent reason why you started doing that thing, and that wasn't a bad intention, and now it's time for it to go. Then it becomes easier to kind of let it go. But if you're still so identified with it because you're unaware, then you don't really have a choice to let it go.
Yeah. But for me, I see awareness as like the first step. And then the action comes after that. But how do you actually stop becoming a people pleaser? Once you're aware that you're a people pleaser, what do
Yeah.
you do next?
The best thing to do is that a lot of the times where we go wrong is that we build these sort of, and this is really comes back to my
Patterns.
work with human design, is that your human design is a map of who you specifically came here to be. And so anything that isn't that is coming from conditioning, right? The way you were taught to be by society, by your parents, childhood, whatever. So what has happened is that most of us, leading our lives with this persona, this sort of shell that we've built up, that is just a compilation of habitual patterns that are almost addictions. They're automatic patterns from our brain because
Yeah.
we seek to feel certain feelings from certain reactions. So we people please because we want to be liked, whatever it is. The journey of becoming your real self is actually saying, hold on a second, like, I know it's really scary to not kind of pre-think what I'm going to say and pre-be this and lead with this kind of version of me, but just to take the risk of just being your organic self in every situation, what I call the unthought through self, and see what comes forward. And yes, there might be times when you go off piece and you say something awkward or you say something you never said before and whatever, but that at least means you've like unshackled from the sort of hard shell of that persona. And then from there, you can gather the data and say, okay, actually, maybe my real self was a bit more soft than that, or maybe I was afraid. It's not that you're not going to get it wrong in trying to be your real self. It's the trying to be your real self and seeing that you might end up being something better than what you thought you could be when you were
Yes.
like contorting your persona the whole time, that you actually end up getting surprised and delighted by your real self. But it's this like big fear that we've been told, like, oh my God, I can't just be like organic and my real self in every situation without, reading everyone's energy and thinking, what are they thinking? And how do I need me to perceive how I'm coming across, and all that sort of like
Overthinking. Yeah.
chatter in the background, which is the people pleasing. Like, what part of me wants to people please? What am I doing it for? What quality do I want people to think that I am, that maybe I worry that I'm not, that I'm using them to reaffirm to me because I actually have an insecurity that I'm not a kind person? Do you know what I mean? So it's that sort of like really being able to admit anything about yourself, that then when you say I'm not going to people please, you can literally just put a 5-second pause in between when you would normally be like, I'll get that for you, and
Yeah.
just try not, and see that the world.
Slow it down.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely you realize that nothing bad is going to happen from you not people pleasing.
Yeah.
So then you're like, oh, this works. And actually I'm noticing that I have more time in my diary, or I'm doing things that are serving me versus everyone else.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's very slow. It's not like the day you decide you just want to stop people pleasing. You say,
overnight.
screw everyone, I'm going on, my whole life is
Anti-people-pleasing.
changing. It's not
People
immediately.
annoying.
Yeah, and it's not immediately like giantly rewarding. It's like this, like, is it even going right? Am I necessarily getting evidence for it? I've just got to keep going. It feels weird, it feels icky, but I know it's important enough to me. So it's not like life is being like, throwing streamers at you every time you make a small decision. And I think that's why it's hard, because we also live in a world where there's like so much more actually not great behavior that we can get more instantly gratified for.
Yeah, I love that. And yesterday we spoke about this, but Joanna Lumley's video that she posted on Instagram, I just thought was so interesting and refreshing, because I can't exactly reference what she said, but she said something along the lines of like, I just want to live my life. I like to read. I like to do this. I'm a dull person. I don't want to look inwards. I just want to live my life and be happy and find like joy in my day. I don't want to be doing a million things and looking. What do you think about that? Because like, I kind of love it. I love the fact that she is just like, no, like enough of the constant self-indulgence and looking inwards and doing this and doing the work and blah, 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 blah. Like there does come a point where you're doing the work, which I hate that phrase, but you're doing all of that stuff. And then you're literally stopping living for that stuff.
Yeah.
So what's the line?
It's such a good question, because I really was that person in my 20s who thought that, I think if you especially grow up with a belief somewhere that there's something wrong with you, then spirituality can almost become the thing that you use to reaffirm that there's always something wrong with you on a subconscious level, because if you do more work, then it's showing you that you're working on that something wrong. So you're trying to have a corrective experience by interacting
Like there's
with
a
all
reason,
this
like,
work.
oh, Mercury's in retrograde.
And look at me.
It's like, no, you've just been rude.
Yes.
You're being a rude person.
Poor
It's nothing to
Mercury.
do with Mercury.
She
Don't
gets
blame
blamed for
Mercury.
so much. I know. She's just like doing her thing, spinning in the sky. But you know what I mean? What is the reason? Because it's underneath everything that we do. It's all about the energy with which you do it and the intentions that we're kind of feeding into it. So I know what it feels like to use spirituality to reaffirm that belief that there's something wrong with me and I'm being a good girl or a good human by doing all this spiritual work, and I'm really working at it, and I'm really, whatever. Ultimately, we have to think about what we actually want to gain from something, and when are we still gaining versus when is it, becoming too much? When is it draining our life from doing other things?
Yeah.
So it really depends on the human and how they're using it, and it depends on the dosage, because it has to be in proportion to all the other things, because there has to be self-awareness, which is really what, I guess doing the work is, but there's also changing your life according to it. So there's a lot of people who are becoming better humans without ever knowing any spiritual tools, quote unquote, because they're just self-aware. They're honest with themselves and their people. They notice what things they want to change in their lives, and they go about changing it. And they have a kind internal dialogue and a kind outer dialogue. Like it really comes down to that.
But that is self-development, and self-development's amazing. Like, we all need to see how we can grow and develop and learn different things, and like we're constantly realizing things about ourselves. But I think there's a tipping point between self-development being a healthy thing, and then it gets to the point where it's taking so much from you and your energy, and also you're getting into this state of like almost restriction, or like, oh, I have to feel uncomfortable to feel comfortable, and all these things, and like no pain, no gain, I'm going to push through, and I'm going to, do all these different practices. And it's like, actually, what are the simple things in your life that you really find brings you happiness? And can you do the self-development alongside those things? Because the second you start to take those things away because you're doing the work, you're actually not doing any work. You're just, wasting your time basically, and going down a rabbit hole. Then you go on Instagram and TikTok and you feel like a terrible person because you're not doing like, all the things. So it's a hard balancing act, I think.
I mean, our friend Peds would say, you got to heal the belief or the thought about yourself, Peter Crone, that is driving that behavior in an addictive way anyway. Like, are you thinking it's because you're not good enough? Is it because you always thought you had to go the extra mile to earn your lovability or your worth? Is it because you think that the answer is in doing more of these things? Is it because we're procrastinating from doing the thing that we're like our gifts and our service, and sometimes embarking on that sort of risky journey of just figuring stuff out? So we're trying to actually, it's a very hidden way of kind of still being a consumer rather than a creator. I mean, you see it in wellness too, right? People doing all the wellness practices, and the TikTok and Instagram will give you 20 more, even if you're doing 30 already.
Yeah. Or the ones you're doing are now not good for you.
Yeah.
But everything that you think is healthy, then there's a new person that says it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think and it's interesting because like for me, self-worth was a big part of my journey, and Peter Crone helped me on that. But I think I was so unaware that it was self-worth. So I was doing all the things. So I was doing my routine and, feeling healthy, and I was becoming myself again. But there was this missing piece. So whilst the journey of that was helping me and serving me, and I was becoming more confident, and I was noticing all these amazing things, like unlocking so much. But at the same time, I would notice, like, for example, in a relationship sense, then like that would come up out of the blue. And I it's only when I realized, oh, that like I actually have low self-worth. I remember when he said it to me, I was so offended. I was like, he was like, you have high self-confidence, low self-worth. And
Wow.
I in my head, again, probably because I had no self-worth, I translated that to meaning like, you are so arrogant, but you have no, like, you're not worthy, basically. I was like, how rude. But then, as I thought about it, and the more we spoke about it, I was like, oh my God, you've hit the nail on the head. And I think it's such a simple thing, but we all have that, like, sometimes it's that missing piece, isn't it? Where
Yeah.
you are doing all the things that are making you feel better, but there's still something that's not quite right, quite there yet.
Yeah.
And it is that, like, cliche of finding the root. And
Yeah.
there can be several roots and several patterns and moments that have, changed the course of your life. But
Yeah.
it's also important to understand, like, don't in your journey to becoming this aligned self lose the happiness along the way.
Yeah. It's not supposed to be another to-do list that we beat ourselves with.
No.
You know, spiritual tools are here to give you, they're here to serve you. You know, you're not a slave to them. They're here, the good ones, and that's how you probably know if they're helpful.
Yeah.
That helps you sift through the noises. If they're sort of making you feel like you can do it, they're reminding you of your capability. They are in service rather than someone telling you that you have to do it their way. And that's really why I love human design so much, is because it was the first thing that I found that gave me, firstly made me feel seen for what I was, because it tells you specifically your manual for life, that it wanted to embolden me to be more me, and it showed me what that was, rather than someone else telling me that I had to do it their way. Because
Yeah.
if you do that, you always are going to feel less powerful.
And what's interesting about human design is it gives you this kind of deep dive into you as an individual, but then it almost which is kind of like, it is a deep dive, and you have to kind of go through it and read up on it and go back to it. But then it gives you this permission to include very simple things in your life. Like for you, you dance every single morning in your bedroom. And like, that's such a simple thing.
Yeah.
But you've probably found that through human design, that is actually what creates, a good start to your day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Totally.
not like a crazy expensive treatment or something like that. But the human design is, as someone going in, it is complicated. But that's why I love what you do, is because you get rid of all of the noise and all of the fluff, and you get really down into it. And it feels like, well, your app feels like I'm talking to you, which is really nice.
That's really my dream, is that I think about my 22-year-old self who first got into spirituality, who was so lost, so overwhelmed. So how do I connect to the universe? How do I feel like I'm, I am God? Like, what do you mean? How does that look in my life? How do I actually turn that into how my day actually looks different as a result of knowing these things, or like feeling that these things are true? And so where I really want to serve people is to hold their hand rather than talk down to them, and be like, okay, this is your manual. This is how you figure it out. Let's make you figuring out with you a more fun process, a more easy process, a more whatever, because it is that journey. Like, no one is coming to save us but us. We've heard that before. This is what it looks like. It likes, okay, when you need, a more slightly, gentle voice, you can give that to yourself. When you need a pep talk, you can give that to yourself. When you need to give yourself a little bit of a talking to, you can give that to yourself. It's those quiet moments. But if you have some kind of rough blueprint of, okay, well, you make decisions with your gut, and this is how you get clarity, and it's different than anyone else's, and maybe waking up early is not good for you, even though everyone tells you that 5 a.m. club is a successful thing.
Yeah.
Like, those things that human design can tell you helps you not only kind of sign out and know what's not right for you in terms of external advice, but the external advice that is a match for you or that is correct for you, you can take it in more deeply.
Yeah.
And then it helps you also like preserve your originality, right? Because now I know, like, okay, no one else has told me. I'm not going to wait on the world to tell me that dancing in the morning boosts my dopamine or whatever it is. I just know that it makes me feel good. And that's all I need to know for me to give myself the permission slip to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So that's what it's like to become the creator of your own life, is you are the one who says, I'm the authority of me.
Yeah. I
That's
love
the
that.
power of it.
And following you, I feel like is such a, I mean, I obviously love it because you're one of my besties, but I think you really do give permission to really be themselves, like people that are like potentially lost or feeling a certain way. When they come to your page, it's just like such a breath of fresh air where it's like, yeah, you can wake up at 5. You can also wake up at 11.
Yeah.
Which is our jam on a holiday.
Literally. That's me and Bryony.
I love it. It's the best thing ever.
But it works so well.
And then at nighttime, I'm like, good night. You're like, oh, good night.
And you know what's so interesting about that, though, is that so many times, I think, especially in romantic relationships, you think that that's a problem.
Yeah, like you feel you have to. That's such a good point, actually. You have to mold yourself into that person.
But even with you and KB, it's like you guys wake up at different times, and it suits actually sometimes,
It's
I think.
heaven. I
There you
love
go.
it. Like it would annoy me so much if he like bound out of bed at 6 a.m. with me. Can you imagine? I'd be like, oh my God, please go to sleep.
Yeah, but that's so
The
healthy
best.
for people to know that
Yeah.
you wake up at way different times.
Hour. Like I've lived a whole day before he's like even had his first coffee.
Exactly.
And it's so nice.
You both love it.
Yeah, love it. And I think often in a relationship sense, and actually this is another question that I get, is that how do you stay true to yourself when you get into a relationship? And I always feel so sad when I see that because I'm like, no, this is the time where if anything, you need to be even more, yourself
true.
and rooted and stuff, because I feel like the success of a relationship is when you're both yourselves and you have this amazing life individually, and then you come together and you have that kind of mutual respect for those separate lives, if that makes sense.
I also feel like it's so unfair to the other person if you're going in with the assumption that a good relationship is homogenizing each other to become like some kind of middle version of self.
Yeah.
They're also having to abandon who they are
Yeah.
for you to meet in the middle. Whereas actually, if you're both really honoring your individuality, in a way, it makes you more harmonized to the other person. Like you guys have a flow that is so nice. Like I've seen you and your flows in the mornings. Like we've been on holiday and been in the same places together. It works so nice because you kind of weave in and out of each other's day,
so
and you get
nice.
exactly what you need. And in many ways, the quality of the moments that you get together is so much better than if he was having to do what your schedule was, or if you were having to sit with him for all his, 2 triple coffees or whatever his like routine is. You would be missing out on all the stuff that fills you up. And then if you're going to him not in your joy, not in your peace, not in your calm, the things that make you feel good, you are not elevating the energy of the moments when you're around him.
Yeah.
So you guys are such a good example of that, where you really do your own thing, and you also have like such a nice overlap of the stuff that you do have in common. But you need both. You need contrast and you need commonality.
Definitely. And like you can still have that togetherness when you're doing your own thing at the same time. Like we really do our own thing. And I think that's what works. So definitely don't lose that if you're going into a new relationship. Like go into that relationship as you, and I know that that's so cliche, but just try as much as you can. And don't, if you have a fitness class that you love to do on a Saturday morning and now you have a relationship and, you're like, oh, but I want to, stick to that. Make sure you do those things that you love. And because the second you start to like, okay, I'll just drop the Saturday morning fitness class, then I'll drop the Monday night with my girlfriends. And then before you know it, you're no longer you. And they signed up to you. So actually, you're then going to lose what they signed up for.
I think that's so common, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there.
And 100% I've been there as well.
So easy for women to do, like to just
So-
mold and
Totally.
create harmony.
Yeah.
But actually being yourself and honoring the things that make you feel good actually do make you a better partner.
For sure.
And do make you more magnetic to that person. Like it preserves the sort of attraction and that magnetic pull, there needs to be some kind of polarity so that the other person feels like you're bringing something different than what they bring. Because if it's just you and someone who's identical to you, you could do that on your own.
Exactly.
You don't need a partner for that.
Yeah, it's so true. That's a good way to look at it. And I also think if your partner is very molding and like he's or she is very comfortable giving up everything or whatever, and then you feel the pressure of doing that, maybe actually if you start to not give up everything, they might be like, oh, thank God, then like this is okay. It's okay that we do these things and it feels calm and good. So yeah, I love that. Okay, I'm going to do quick fire round questions from people on Insta. How can reflectors not take on other people's energy?
Oh, that's so interesting. I love that question. So the best thing about reflectors is that they do mirror people back to them. So they're people who can really kind of become your vibe when they're with you and in front of you. The key is that if I'm a reflector and I'm with you and I'm becoming more like Bryony vibes when I'm with you, is not for me to misidentify as that being me. Like the second I leave you, I'm just like back to a blank slate again. I'm not thinking, oh my gosh, I like myself more because I was wearing white, or, that's going to be my entire personality now, which is what reflectors, when they're in what we call the not self, the sort of conditioned way, end up doing. And they try to create these like tight personalities around like specific sort of tags. So the best thing is to actually just be like, oh, right now I'm enjoying wearing white because I was just with this person. It was just like a fun experience for me to dip into. And now I'm going to go somewhere that's completely pink. I'm oversimplifying.
Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy being what it's like to be pink because they're real, like they're
don't
sort of chameleons.
go in and attach to it and be like, this is me
Yeah.
now. Okay.
Yeah, because the second you're out of someone's energy, you don't have that anymore. So
You're on to the
unless
next.
you're holding on to it, you can leave it straight behind. But what they do is they hold on to it. So that's the key, is to not hold on to the definitions of who you felt good being around and trying to be that,
Good tip. Okay, as a projector, the best way to turn your passion into a business?
Well,
It's a big question.
it is a big question. The best thing to do is to think about what it is that you can do, what improvements that you see that can really serve people, and then make it very obvious to people that that's what you're offering or that's what you have to offer. And the right people who will actually want that from you will come to you. And then you don't actually need to necessarily always think about how it's going to be looking like as a business. Like, sometimes you can have a business plan and it unfolds into so many other things.
Oh my
You know what I
God,
mean? Like you would have
always, I
never
think.
have wound up here if you
No.
thought about it from day one.
Do you think anyone wrote a business plan like exactly the way that they...
No. But I think that's another myth, is like I have to know how it's going to look before I start.
Yeah.
That back to that thing. So with
Like,
projectors,
look at
it's like,
Netflix. Weren't they like sending out DVDs?
were they?
Yeah. I think they were like a DVD subscription thing. Yeah. That's a pivot.
So it's not about the business, it's about the value that you add. What tweak, what improvement, what kind of thing are you really good at helping people sort of use to upgrade their lives, and just get really good at it and get really good at being clear that that's what you're doing, so
Yeah.
that people can find you. Because if you don't say that's what you're doing, people can't invite you.
Like
So-
put it out there to be invited. Okay, love that. And finally, how to know what your intuition and gut feeling is telling you without the noise around you. So how to quieten the noise.
This is the best part of human design. It's called your authority, and it talks about how everyone has a different part of them that is here to make decisions. And for none of us, it's the mind. Like the mind, we've become so over-indexed on mind. Like I have to look at what everyone else is doing. I have to figure out the facts. I have to come up with the strategy. I have to know that it's all going to be okay. If I do A, B, C, then I'll get D. And it, like we said, it never works that way. So what you really have to do, and the reason why it's called your authority, is because that's how you become the authority of your own life, rather than let other people be the authority over you. So what human design really does, and this is the actual way that you get aligned, is you make more aligned choices. And when I say aligned, I mean true to you choices. Because
Yeah.
imagine stringing correct choices over the course of a day and then having that compound over the next day and the next day and the next day. That's really what helps you get to the places where you want to go. And so you have to learn what your authority is, because then it's very easy to know what to do in the like basic thing that's right in front of you today. So for example, with you, because you're sacral, I think you're a sacral authority, I forget. But for example, if you're a sacral authority, that means that you're ruled by your gut, meaning that the way that you always know the answer is to ask yourself, turn it into a yes or no question. So instead of saying, what do I want to do with my life? Okay, say, do I want to create a shoe brand, yes or no? Or do I want to create a shoe brand or a...
Like be very specific and precise.
Turn it into black and white, yes or no, this or that type of questions,
Yeah.
because then that's how you know which one immediately you find is like, oh, it's obviously this one, or
That
this
is
one I'm more
such a
lit
good
up by.
tip.
You know what I mean? Rather than as generators asking themselves open-ended questions is so difficult. And when you do that, you're always going to feel like you can't make the decision. And then you're only going to reaffirm to yourself that you're not good at making decisions. So it's about knowing how to actually structure the question correctly for you. And then it becomes easier to answer. So that's where human design is really, you know, it can tell you so much about the qualities you have and the gifts you have and all that stuff. But it also gives you like how you actually make the changes to, you know, make stuff happen in your life more easily and have clarity on stuff. Because I think where we really suffer the most is in the times where we don't have clarity. That's where we really struggle always.
Yeah. I love that. That's
Yeah.
really good. And also just so tangible. Like you could apply that to business decisions. And I love the idea of making it very black and white, like a yes or a no. Mm-hmm. That like speaks to me. But
Yeah.
again, someone listening could be like, oh no, like that's too much, you know? Mm-hmm. So I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, to finish, let's do a quick fire round.
That was the medium fire.
I know, exactly.
That was not quick at all. I didn't
know.
answer that in short form.
Also, I feel like quick fire with us is impossible.
I
But we'll try. We'll give it a go. Okay. What's one thing that you've added into your life lately that you love?
Well, I haven't added it from the get-go, but I've re-added, which is, I told you I hurt my back recently.
Yes.
And I was just very lax about upper body workouts all the time. You know this.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to do leg and bum. And it was such a wake-up call for me that working out, just because you can get away with not doing it, it doesn't mean that for long term. I was like gushing to you about this last week. Like, I've started doing your arm workouts for the first time, when I always used to do like inner thigh, oblique, blah blah blah. But hurting my back was really like such a wake up call of, oh, I get why people who are in their 60s are so debilitated by having back pain. And it's because I haven't done enough to support my like shoulders and my chest and my back muscles and all that kind of thing. And so what I've added into my life is understanding that, and I know it's such a thing that people say, but I just didn't take it seriously because you're young and you're like, whatever. But there's a deeper reason than just doing it because it makes you feel good or because it gives you energy, that you actually do need to support your
Body.
your
skeleton.
And that's why you work on your arms, you know, and your back and your abs and all that kind of thing. Hurting my back, I was like, I really need to actually, my core is an act of preserving for my 70-year-old self.
Yeah,
you know?
totally. Last night when I hugged you before dinner, I could feel your posture like somehow was different.
No way.
Yeah, I could feel your chest was more open. I know. I'm not just saying
Wow,
that,
you're
I swear.
so tuned in.
I
And that's
swear.
literally just been a week of doing
I
it.
feel like I know you and your body so well. Like when do you know what I mean? I could feel it.
Wow.
But yeah.
But it's life-changing, and I really wish, I know we work out so much to like have energy and for aesthetics and everything, and I was honestly, just hand on my heart, I was always like, I'm fine with my arms, I think I look fine. But actually there is a deeper reason.
For
and
sure.
when you can't get off the sofa or can't get off the loo
Yeah.
without hurting your back, which that was me last week.
Oh my gosh.
You're like, okay, I really have to make sure that my
Yeah.
back is protected by having a strong core and
It
arms.
is longevity. You have
Yeah.
to think about that. So I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, and what's one thing that you learnt recently that was a bit of a moment?
I'm trying to think. What have I learned recently?
It could be the
Like
tiniest
I'm
thing.
learning new things all the time that I don't even, you know, when you just feel like I feel like we're living in a world where there's so much new information all the time. Oh, I learned something really interesting actually from a reel that someone sent me, which was about marketing. Someone was
Oh,
saying, you know, the more people are going to use AI to do their newsletters and do their, you know, fake versions of them to make a marketing thing online, what if there's going to be this like also return back to in-person marketing, because we're not going to open 10 newsletters if they're all written for us by robots. So what if people end up actually opening newsletters less and engaging less? Then it's going to become more about the human. You know,
yeah.
it's
So it's
actually
like
bringing it
it's gonna
back
happen
to
in reverse.
valuing
Yeah.
human energy rather than all the things that we think are gonna AI is gonna replace us. So I've been learning a lot about those
That's
kinds of
so
things recently. I
interesting.
found that fascinating. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, do.
Yeah.
I loved this. This was a good conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
This is so much fun.
I know, it's flown by.
Just like felt like our normal chats.
I know. Cash, love you.
I
Thank
love
you
you
so
too.
much. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.